What's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you all back to the Boombox Guru channel. I'm your host, LB. So today I got another album review. I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite hip-hop albums of all time, and that is the first album by Busta Rhymes, his solo debut, known as The Coming. This is one of my favorite hip-hop albums, and arguably, I would say that this is my favorite Busta Rhymes album. Although he does have a lot of classics under his belt, this tends to be the album that I listen to the most in his discography. Usually when I want to listen to Busta Rhymes, this is usually one of the first albums that I will go to and listen to on a regular basis. I really enjoy this record. Um, Classic hip hop album. You know, it was a huge success. You know, Busta, he like when this album dropped, man, he just hit the ground running, and he's been gone ever since. So to get into this album review, I just want to give a little brief background on the record and what led up to Busta embarking on this album and a solo career. Because most of you know, Busta actually started out with a hip hop group known as Leaders of the New School. So just a brief background. This album was actually released on March the 26th of 1996, and this was Busta Rhymes' first solo album after the breakup of his group Leaders of the New School, which was 3 years prior. They actually broke up in '93 after their second album, Time to Enter Mind's Eye, which I think is a very underappreciated classic, and I actually think was better than the first album. But in between that time, that 3 year span, Busta spent most of his time being featured on other people's projects. He did a number of guest appearances, ranging from artists of A Tribe Called Quest, Craig Mack, the Notorious B.I.G, Heavy D and the Boyz, and Mary J. Blige. And I would say his biggest appearance would be the Flavor in Your Ear remix. You know, Craig Mack song, which featured him, featured Busta Rhymes, Notorious B.I.G, LL Cool J, Rampage from Flipmode Squad. That was the biggest one, and I think that appearance was what really raised his profile, and it really made people pay attention to him as a solo artist. But unfortunately, though, Busta had a lot of problems going into like recording this record, because it was his first time really doing a solo thing, and he had a lot of problems and difficulties in getting the ball rolling. You know, coming up with ideas of what songs to record for the album and so forth, how to start it off. So he called on his mentor and close friend Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest and asked him for help. And after 7 months, he finally came up with an idea, which would be a skit that appears on the end of the song "It's a Party." But this album was a huge success when it came out. It reached number 6 on the Billboard 200. It received a platinum certification from the RIAA for selling over 1 million copies in the United States by February of '99. The lead single, Woo-Hah, Got Y'all in the Check, reached number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 in '96. It earned Busta Rhymes his first nomination for Best Rap Solo Performance at the 39th Grammy Awards. And Busta Rhymes was the first artist on Elektra that received a platinum certification, man. So yeah, Busta, he dropped this record and he hit the ground running. He's been gone ever since, man. But a great record. It deserves every bit of the accolades that it has received and that it continues to get. So I want to, you know how I usually do, I break down the track list, give you my reviews on each and every track on here. And there's 12 tracks on this album? 13. 2 of them are interludes, well, an intro and an outro. You know, the front of the album and the end of the album. So the first track is The Coming intro. And this is the album's introduction, and this is what introduces that whole apocalyptic thing that Busta Rhymes had on his solo albums, which he carried over into the next 2 or 3 if you want to include Anarchy. He carried that theme over to his next albums as well. And it features Flipmode Squad members Lord Have Mercy and Rampage. They're not really rapping on these tracks. It's mostly just them talking and really just playing out that whole apocalyptic dystopian theme. And it was a well put together introduction. It's very cinematic. A lot of it is like watching a movie, and I think a lot of the inspiration from the intro really came from like those like apocalyptic dystopian films, man. But I can't lie though, there's a lot of times that I really kind of wish that the beats that they used on there would have been some songs that Busta Rhymes would actually rapped over, because it was some pretty good music that they used in this intro that I felt like, man, it would have been really nice if they had just rapped over those songs instead of just talking over it. But the intro really just sets up the whole theme of the whole apocalyptic thing that Busta would carry over through the next few albums. So then we go to track number 2, which is Do My Thing. And this is the first official song that you hear on the record. And this one was produced by DJ Scratch, who has been a long time collaborator with Busta Rhymes. He still continues to produce for Busta Rhymes to this day. This is one of my favorite songs on the record, man. I mean, it has this slow, funky rhythm, a very hard hitting bass line, man. That bass line is just so sick on that particular song, man. Like, it's the type of song that you want to turn it up all the way. You want to turn the volume up all the way, and you want to be pulling up in a Walmart parking lot when that song's hitting, because that bass just hits so hard. So if you got a nice system in your car, this is definitely the type of song that you want to be blasting when you're riding around. And Busta, man, he really showcased his like renown in the pocket flow. Busta has one of the things that Busta is very renowned for as an MC is how he has the ability to get right in the pocket of the rhythm of a song. I mean, his rapping, it becomes so in sync with the rhythm that his vocals become an instrument with itself. That's just how well he just rides and catches that rhythm. And then I really dig the whole James Brown influence of the whole entire vibe, whether it be Busta Rhymes ad-libs that he puts onto the track, whether it be the song itself, the way it's produced by DJ Scratch. I mean, to me, it's very funky. It's very funky and kind of soulful in a lot of ways. And the way that Busta Rhymes just does the chorus, to me, is just very reminiscent of how James Brown would get down on his records. But that's just the whole kind of vibe that particular track gets. It gets from me, at least. So definitely one of my favorites, man. I enjoy that track every minute. Sometimes I have to just put it on repeat and just listen to it over and over again because it's such a great track. But definitely a great way to start off the record. Definitely sets the tone of the rest of the record and what we're in for. So then we get to track number 2, which is Everything Remains Raw. And this one is produced by the great Easy Mo B. You know, Easy Mo B was well known for his work with Tupac as well as Notorious B.I.G. But he gave Busta, I think, one of his best tracks right here with Everything Remains Raw. So personally for me, man, this is an all-time classic Busta Rhymes song. And it's easily one of Easy Mo B's best beats, man. I mean, this song, it kind of has this jazzy feel to it, but at the same time, it's kind of got an aggressive, hardcore hip-hop style to it. And Busta, man, his energy on here is just really high. He's really hype on this song, and he just takes it to another level, man. That's what really takes this song to the next level, is that Busta, he just has this energetic approach that, as a listener, it really gets you hyped up. Because I can tell you from experience, man, anytime that this song comes on in my car, or if I'm at home listening to it, I get hyped, man. Like, I'm kind of just mimicking Busta Rhymes and just bobbing my head and just really getting into it. And a fun fact, in the video for the single Woo-Hah, I Got Y'all in Check, they actually play a snippet of that song at the beginning of the video. It's when Busta and his crew are all in the car, and they're like jamming out to that. They're like jamming out in the car in that Jeep. This is the song that's playing in the beginning of that video, which Busta was known for that. He was known to have like a snippet of a really dope album cut at the beginning of a lot of his music videos. But yeah, this is another one of my favorite Busta Rhymes songs right here, man. Just another one of my favorites from him. Then track number 3 is Abandoned Ship. And this features Rampage of the Flipmode Squad. And a fun fact is that Rampage and Busta Rhymes are actually real life cousins. And this track was actually produced by Busta Rhymes himself. And I don't think people know that Busta Rhymes is actually a pretty good producer himself. I know prior to him dropping this album, he actually produced a song. He co-produced a song on Keith Murray's first album, The Most Beautifulest Thing in the World. He produced a song on Keith Murray's first album, which was really one of the best songs on there too. And he also produced tracks on the last Leaders of the New School album. Well, they all have production credits on that, but he produced a few of the songs on that album as well. But the sample that's used in this song is a track from Lee Michaels' "Don't Want No Woman," and there's a portion of that song that's sampled that's utilized through the whole entire song. And Busta and Rampage, man, I gotta tell you, you can really tell that they're kin to each other, man, because they just had this remarkable chemistry on this track. The way they trade bars and the way they go back and forth on this entire song, it's just amazing, man. You can really feel the camaraderie and the kinship between both of them on this particular track. And I actually think Abandoned Ship might have been released as a promo single, or it was the B-side to one of the other main singles on the record. But in any case, man, it's one of the best tracks on here, and it was produced by Busta Rhymes, so he did a heck of a job on that beat and that sample, man. I don't, to my knowledge, I didn't see anywhere where it said anybody else might have co-produced it, but in any case, Busta, he did his thing on that track, production wise and as a performer. So now we get to the next song on here, which is Woo-Hah, got you all in check. This was the first single from the record, and this is the song that put Busta Rhymes on the map as a solo artist. It really helped establish him as a solo artist after that 3 years of guest appearances, man. But hugely successful first single, solo debut single from Busta Rhymes, and Woo-Hah has gone on to become one of Busta Rhymes' signature songs, and it helped solidify his successful career as a solo artist. People were kind of questioning what Busta was gonna do after Leaders broke up. There were questions in the air, but I think this song, when it dropped, it really quelled all of those misconceptions or skepticisms that people might have had about Busta being a solo artist. And how Busta Rhymes actually came up with the idea for this song was, it says that he was in a studio session with his cousin Rampage and record producer Rashad Smith. Smith went through his record collection and found Galt McDermott's 1968 instrumental song Space. Rhymes told him that he wanted to use the sample for himself and to put the record away and save it for him. Eventually, Smith produced the beat for the song using the sample and sent it to Rhymes, who could not come up with any lyrics. 7 months later, Rhymes listened to the Sugar Hill Gang's 1980 song Eighth Wonder and found new inspiration through the lyric Woo-Hah got them all in check, which he went to interpolate as part of the chorus. Rhymes reused parts of the lyrics from a freestyle battle in 1995 he did with rapper Old Dirty Bastard, who would later feature on the remix version of the song. Yeah, and I actually remember that remix version too. I saw the video a couple of times back in the day, but I remember watching the episode of Behind the Music on Busta Rhymes back in the early 2000s, and they talked about how Sugar Hill Gang song is what gave him the inspiration to create this song. But this is still one of Busta Rhymes' biggest songs. Still one of his biggest songs. I mean, the video was so crazy, man. And again, easily one of his most recognizable hits, man. Like, soon as that opening like beat comes on, and he comes in with that y'all, you already know what it is. It's just so recognizable. But a bit of trivia too behind this song is in 2012, Busta Rhymes was actually sued by the Sugar Hill Gang for copyright infringement for an allegedly uncredited interpolation of the group's 1980 song Eighth Wonder. So the Sugar Hill Gang actually sued Busta Rhymes for that years later, almost 20 years later. We're close to it, but I don't know. I couldn't find any more information on whether that was a settlement or whatever. But whatever the case is, man, it's a classic hip hop song. It's one of the greatest hip hop songs of all time. It's a timeless one. I think a song that still will get a crowd hyped up when it comes on. I mean, that beat is just crazy. And this song was actually co-produced by Busta Rhymes with Rashad Smith. So it's just crazy, man. That song, it just has a whole vibe about it that just makes you just want to get hyper when you hear it, man. To me, this song is like crunk before crunk in a lot of ways, man, because I can only imagine what it was like back in the day, hearing this song in the club or even seeing Busta Rhymes perform it live. Even nowadays, Busta Rhymes performing this song live, I guarantee you that song will get the audience just hyped up. I think everybody would just go crazy hearing that song. But it is such a classic, man. And this song never gets old for me. It never gets old for me. As much as I've heard it, I never get tired of this song, which really goes to show you how great of a song it really is. Alright, so the next track on here is It's a Party, and this features Zhané. And this was the second single from the record. Now Zhané, they were an R&B duo, and they were best known for their '93 hit single "Hey Mr. DJ," and they also had another song that was a real big hit that I can't think of. If any of you that's watching know what that other song they had that was a big hit, leave it in the comment section. But this song was also produced by Easy Mo B, and Mo B, he gave this track a more mellow hip hop R&B touch. Granted, because Zhané is on the song, and what I like about It's a Party is that It's a Party really demonstrated Busta Rhymes' range as an artist. So most of this album you could say is really for like the hard heads, the real like hip hop heads. But It's a Party was the first instance where it really showed that Busta Rhymes, he could make songs for like the fellas and the real like true hip hop heads and the hard heads of the whole culture, but he also could venture off and he could also appeal to the ladies and appeal to the radio, because that's what this song did. I mean, the whole dynamic between him and Zhané was just really good. They matched well together. They gelled well together. And Busta, he doesn't get so aggressive or animated on this track. He actually raps in his normal talking voice, and it's actually quite smooth, which is another factor about this song that I think will help appeal to the ladies. And actually, a music critic named Daryl McIntosh of Albumism, he noted that the song shows that Busta Rhymes could entertain more than just the hard knocks at the party, and now captures the ladies' attention. He also added that the Late Night Gym added a new chapter to the growing legend of Busta Rhymes, and I think that's the best way to describe this track and what it did for Busta. I don't think it was as huge as maybe the other, as Woo-Hah, but still it really demonstrated that Busta was a multi-dimensional artist, and that he could take it anywhere he wanted to. All right, so next track on here, Hot Fudge, which is produced by the Vibe Chemist Backsman. And the Vibe Chemist Backsman, he goes all the way back to Leaders of the New School era. He produced quite a few tracks on the first album, and I'm pretty sure he had some on the second one, Time, as well. I'm not quite sure what this song is about. I'm gonna be honest with you, not quite sure. I mean, the first verse sounds like Busta is like going at somebody, or possibly just spitting fire bars. The second verse goes into a little bit of the history of Leaders of the New School, and to where he is at that moment, where he was at that moment as a solo artist. Yeah, I try my best to try to listen to the lyrics to really kind of try to get some kind of idea of what Busta might have been talking about in this song, but I couldn't really come up with nothing. Like the first verse, like I said, it really sounds like either he's going at somebody in those verses, or that he's just spitting some hot bars, man. And I read a comment somewhere on YouTube that said that he possibly might have been going at Onyx in that first verse, but that was just a comment I seen it on the YouTube. So I'm not trying to don't quote me on that. Basically, I couldn't find any other confirmation on that, but somebody in the comments just left that saying that he was going at Onyx, but that could be just somebody talking. But yeah, that second verse, he kind of went into like a little bit of a backstory about Leaders of the New School, them getting signed to Elektra, and the whole goal that they had as a group. And then him end up them kind of faltering, and him end up getting the main attention and stuff like that. Him growing, his popularity growing more and more within the group. He kind of touched on that, but it was a really cool beat. The beat's kind of laid back, kind of spacious in some sense, but it was a really cool song, man. So next track is Ill Vibe, track number 8, I believe. Yeah, track number 8, and this features Q-Tip of A Tribe Called Quest, and it was produced by the Ummah, which the Ummah was a production team that included Q-Tip, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, both of A Tribe Called Quest, and Jay Dilla. A relatively unknown Jay Dilla, who at the time was going by his original moniker JD. But this particular song, although it's credited to the Ummah, Q-Tip was the one who did this production on this particular track. And Busta and Q-Tip have a remarkable chemistry between each other when they get on tracks together. I mean, both MCs complement each other very well on this track. And this song is actually the 5th collaboration between Busta and Tip. They had done several collaborations. Probably one of the most recognizable ones prior to this was the Scenario song, which featured leaders in the new school. And then, of course, that, I said the Flavor in Your Ear was one of Busta Rhymes' more high profile guest appearances, but it was actually the Scenario song. His feature on there, his verse on that song was what really, like, at least raised his popularity within leaders of a new school. But each line of the first verse in Ill Vibe, it ends with the is sound. Like, if you listen to the song, Busta Rhymes' first verse, he rhymes the end of every line with the sound of ease. You just have to listen to the song and kind of read the lyrics to go along to really kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about. But I really dig the beat. Q-Tip really did his thing on this beat, man. I always thought Jay Dilla might have produced it, and maybe he did, because I think Jay Dilla did a lot of ghost producing back then too, for Q-Tip, possibly. But to me, it always felt like a JD beat. But in any case, man, the beat is very mellow, has a very spacious sound, and that whole spacey sample that you hear is from a song called Dizzy by Hugo Montenegro. I hope I pronounced that last name right. I might have butchered it. But yeah, I'm not familiar with that artist. Might need to look him up. But yeah, it's got a very mellow, spacious sound that goes to a very, very groovy kind of track as well. Alright, so next song is Flipmode meets the Def Squad, track number 9, man. Probably one of the best posse cuts of all time. This one is produced by the Vibe Chemist Backspin as well. He gives this song a very hard-hitting, dark instrumental. All 6 MCs on here spit straight fire over this track. Flipmode Squad, that's Busta Rhymes' crew. On this particular song is him, Lord Have Mercy, and Rampage. And of course, Def Squad at this time, this is Redman, Jamal, aka Molly G, and Keith Murray. They killed this song. They all of them killed this song, man. Just straight flames on here, man. But my top 3 verses from this song is going to Jamal, Redman, and Busta, and in that order. But my favorite one out of the top 3 is probably Jamal's opening verse. That's my favorite. And that says a lot, because everybody on this song, everybody killed this beat. Everybody just came on and just, whoo, they just straight up smoked it, man. But Jamal, his opening verse, that's my favorite, man. I just always like to rewind his verse and just recite the whole entire verse, man, because he came on this hard, man. And he's the youngest one out of all of them. Jamal, he was a member of that rap duo, that kid duo called Illegal, that included Lil Malik, who is Snoop Dogg's cousin. He was one half of that duo. They came out during that whole wave of the kid rap groups that was real popular in the early 90s. But man, he flamed this track with that first verse. He really set the tone of it, man. But all 6 of MCs came hard on this one, man. But Jamal's verse is my favorite. So next track on here, Still Shining. Now let me tell you something about this song. This is one of the greatest Busta Rhymes songs of all time. Like, if I had a list of my top 10 Busta Rhymes songs, I'm pretty sure Still Shining would probably be in the top 5. Even if I had a top 20, Still Shining probably be in the top 5, and it would probably be number 1, honestly. Real talk. That's just how great that this song really is. So this track is produced by the Ummah, but JD, aka Jay Dilla, is the main one behind this one. He's the main one behind this. You can really tell with this one. And again, gotta reiterate, one of my all-time favorite Busta Rhymes songs. This song is a perfect example of Busta's ability as a lyricist, man. So there's several moments in this song where the beat weirdly changes rhythms, and Busta, he has to quickly adapt his style to fit that rhythm. That's just how crazy it's almost like the way the beat changes. It's almost like the song is kind of it's almost like the song is messing up, and Busta he just manages to really hang on to every bit of the rhythm. Busta's in the pocket flow really shines heavily on this track. And I always go to this song, always refer to Still Shining as one of the greatest examples of how great of an MC Busta Rhymes really is. Because I think I remember reading somewhere where it kind of took him like a few weeks to even figure out how he was gonna rhyme on this song because of how the beat just weirdly kind of changes and kind of gets out of whack. So wait, and what he came up with, in my opinion, is one of his best tracks, man. I mean, lyrically, I mean, he eviscerated this song, man. He did JD, aka J Dilla, justice on this one. He did him justice on this one. He did not waste that beat one bit, man. He came hard on it. But really dig this track. One of my all-time favorite Busta Rhymes songs. If you never listened to Still Shining, stop this video right now and pull up another window, YouTube window, and freaking listen to it, man. You'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, next song, and this is another great track on this record, man, is Keep It Moving. So Keep It Moving. This is another one produced by the Ummah, but J Dilla is the main man behind this one as well. This track features Busta's former group members, leader of a new school. So Milo and the Dance, Dinko D, and Charlie Brown are on here. Arguably one of the greatest hip hop reunions ever. Every member killed this track with straight bars. Everybody killed it, and just for a brief moment, you get a taste of what maybe leaders of the new school would have sounded like had they kept on going. But let me tell you something else that's so much more remarkable about this song. It's not the fact that it's such a great song in itself. It's the fact that leaders of the new school had broken up 3 years prior. And they didn't really break up on the best of terms. It was pretty acrimonious in my opinion, especially with the tension and animosity that had developed between Busta Rhymes and Charlie Brown. But the fact that Busta Rhymes, he decided to bring these guys in and include him on his solo album and to give them shine on his first solo album, it shows you what type of person Busta Rhymes is. It shows you that he's loyal. Because you can watch interviews where Busta Rhymes talks about this. He talks about the breakup of leaders in the new school. And he talks about how he did not want the group to break up. How he did his best. He did his best to try to keep leaders of the new school together. Because he didn't want to do the solo thing. And he wanted to continue to make music with his brothers. Also, I didn't know that Milo was also Busta Rhymes' cousin. At least that's what Dante Ross said. Dante Ross said Milo and Busta Rhymes are cousins as well. But that just goes to show you how loyal Busta Rhymes is as a person. Because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to go back and get his ex group members and do a song. He could have easily said, F these dudes. They kicked me out the group. Because Busta Rhymes actually says they kicked him out of the group. And that they tried to go and get another budget for an album without him. And Dante Ross was like, no, I'm not giving y'all another budget for an album without Busta. And that's why the group ended up disbanding. But Busta did what he could to keep them together. And you could say that this right here may have been an attempt for him to kind of keep them together and to bring them back. But in any case, man, whatever it was one of the best hip-hop reunions on a song ever. And they killed it. They killed this song. Every last one of them, man. And it really shows how all the other members, it makes you wonder why none of them really did anything on solo on their own. Maybe they tried and it didn't work out. Who knows? Life and other things come out. But I think Charlie Brown could have actually been potentially had a successful solo career like Busta maybe. Because I always looked at him and Busta as being the two best out of leaders. But who knows, man. But in any case, keep it moving. This was a great track. It was a great track. And it was really cool that Busta went and got his ex-group members and did a song with them on his first solo record. Alright, so now we get down to the last song, track 12, which is The Finish Line. And this is another one produced by DJ Scratch. So this song, Busta, and I got this from Genius. In Genius, it says that Busta discusses the rap game, explaining there are two choices, paths you can take, good or bad. Personally, I don't think that it's about the rap game necessarily. I think you could actually apply this to life in general. Because, the examples he gives, like, each verse, it's like Busta is talking to people who are wasting their time and are not being aware of their surroundings. and it's almost like he's warning them, you know, like life is catching up with them. He's warning them because life is catching up with them. And it's about to be too late. And see, this kind of ties into the whole apocalyptic thing that Busta had going. Because remember, on the song "Everything Remains Raw," you know, towards the end of the song, he keeps yelling, "There's only 5 years left. There's only 5 years left." You know, with each album, he'd be like, "Well, there's 4 years left. There's 3 years left." Because you know, this was the late '90s. Around this time, if you didn't grow up in the late '90s, or if you didn't grow up in the '90s at all, during this era, there was a lot of speculation, conspiracies, people saying that the world was going to end when the year 2000 arrived, when the new millennium, at the turn of the new millennium, and that's why Busta was kind of doing this whole apocalyptic thing. Well, it was other things too. I think it was just who he was as a like 5%er and so forth. The information he got from that, but you know that all of that was going around in the late '90s around this time, and that's why Busta was saying stuff like there's only 5 years left and stuff. But yeah, this song, you could say that it's kind of keeping in line with that, because he talks about people that, you know, they're just making bad choices in their life and they're not doing what they should be doing, and they got people in their circle that possibly aren't trustworthy and could do them in the end. But that's really how that's really what sums up the song, and I think it kind of sums up somewhat of the album, and it shows how Busta kind of throws in a little bit of that messaging into his rhyme style as well. But of course, the last official track is the End of the World outro, and this is Busta, that he's pretty much just thanking his fans for purchasing and for listening to the album, and promising more hot music to come, which Busta did. He definitely delivered on that. He still continues to deliver on hot music, man. But you know, for my conclusion on this album, I gotta say that, you know, The Coming, it was a huge success for Busta Rhymes, and it really established him as a successful solo artist. And of course, the whole apocalyptic thing that he introduced on this album, you know, he would carry it over to his next albums, When Disaster Strikes and ELE, Extinction Level Event, The Final World Front. And you could possibly include Anarchy in that. I mean, Anarchy had some of those things, but I think Anarchy was more about where the world was at that point, because Anarchy came out in the year 2000, and of course the world didn't end. But I think Anarchy was more kind of about like, okay, this is where we are at this point now. But I think the best way to sum up this record, I think Daryl McIntosh of Albumism, I'm using him again, I think he summed this album up perfectly, where he says, "The Coming was one of the best solo rap performances of 1996, and it stands as one of the all-time great debut LPs in hip-hop. Busta's first verse, first single, and first album all stand as testaments to the fact that he is one of hip-hop's elite artists and the perennial main event." And you know something? I could not have said that better myself. I think that is the best way to describe this record, describe Busta Rhymes as an artist and what he has contributed to hip hop. You know, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I think that's the best way, you know, to end this review, man. So, The Coming by Busta Rhymes, one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time. If you haven't heard this album, please go on YouTube and listen to it. Go on Spotify and stream it. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed, man. Especially if you're somebody that's not that familiar with 90s hip hop. You were born after that era, and maybe you want to dig into some of those classic records. This is definitely one album that you need to check out, is The Coming by Busta Rhymes. So that is it for this album review. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in and checking out this album review. And if you did like this video, I do ask, and I would appreciate it, hey, if you just hit that thumbs up and give me a like, because it helps out with the channel. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that button and tap that bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop new content. And also be sure to share the video. If you like this, you come across this video, be sure to share it to other places where you think other people might be appreciative of it. And I also want to give a huge thank you to everybody out there that has been supporting the channel, that's been watching the videos, that's been subscribing, leaving comments and so forth. I really do appreciate that. And as always, hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week. Love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.